So welcome everybody to our first revenue execution series by Airspeed. We're thrilled to have you all here today. We've got a great guest speaker joining us that we'll get into in a minute. We'll start some introductions. But first, I wanted to give a little bit of background on this event and some exciting things that we're thinking about at Airspeed. So several of you have been with us on our journey for a couple years now or a couple of months, and you know that we've made some big announcements recently. We rebranded, we changed our name from Glyphic to Airspeed. We also just announced our Series A for 20 million. And thank you, appreciate the applause. And we're really leaning into our agentic approach to the product. We recently also launched our forecasting solution, which some of you have already turned on. It's in its kind of beta trial phase right now. If you're interested in that, you can request it through the product. But through all that interaction and great announcements and LinkedIn coverage, we've got a lot of great feedback from our customers and our users. And I think a common thread in all of that is just the desire to have more collaboration, more dialogue, more thought leadership, and more best practice sharing from our users with each other. So due to that, we have kicked off this revenue execution series. We are going to be doing this once a month. It will be focused on a specific topic every time. That's an Airspeed product focused feature or topic. And we aim to have at least one customer spotlight guest speaker in those sessions, maybe multiple. We want this to be generated based on you, the voice of our customer, and your ideas and your input. So at the end of the session, we'll be sharing some ways that you guys can give us feedback and give us ideas. But if you have a topic that you're just dying to kind of showcase your best practices and what you're doing with the product, if you want to be a part of this panel in a monthly session, please reach out and let us know. We will be building out the monthly calendar and really leveraging, what makes most sense for you guys. So, so with that, we're going to jump into some introductions and then get started. Okay, I will start quickly. My name is Emily Gates. I'm the VP of Customer Success at Airspeed. I've been here for a full quarter now. I joined at the end of Q1. It's now the end of Q2. I have been building post-sales operations, account management, customer success, technical functions for about 15 years now in go-to-market B2B enterprise SaaS. And I joined Airspeed because one, great product, two, great founders, great vision. And I really wanted the opportunity to build a modernized CS organization using, native AI and agentic architecture, and really kind of experiment in this new world that we all find ourselves in. As a go-to-market leader, I'm deeply passionate about the product. I'm passionate about you, our users, and the challenges that you face every day, and just really excited to lead this team and to be here today to listen to and collaborate with you. So, Adam, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you everyone who's joined us today. I recognize quite a few names on the participant list, so definitely eager to hear your perspectives. I know in addition to working with you, we've had specific conversations on coaching scorecards and your kind of approach to enablement as well. So definitely looking forward to your perspectives. Just by way of quick background, so I'm a relative newcomer to Airspeed as well. I joined at the tail end of February. So in Airspeed years, somewhat of a veteran compared to Emily, but still nonetheless relatively new. And my background has always been kind of at the intersection of customer success and new business. So I've kind of alternated throughout my career as both an account executive and a CSM, and have used many different enablement tools and functionalities, as well as kind of broader sales tools as well. So yeah, looking forward to the discussion. And Grant, I will turn it over to you now to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Adam, and thanks, Emily, and great to see everyone here on, what is it, a Tuesday? I've lost the day of the week already. It's been that hectic, so good to see everyone. As I'm sure you can read, it says Chief Client Officer and SVP at LevelUp, so that's me. A little bit about me. I am and have been in sales and commercial leadership for a very long time. mostly focused in the solution sales side. So been working in kind of human capital, training, talent businesses. Current business, been here just under 4 years. Joined when we were just sub 100 million. We're now on track to plan to get to our 500 million mark. So aggressive growth. We're pushing hard. Mostly organic and also acquisitions. So, I am I'm going to say Glyphic. I keep saying Glyphic. I'm sorry, Emily.
It's okay.
And Adam.
We're still.
And I think it's fair because I've been with Airspeed, formerly known as Glyphic, for I think 2 years. So I think I was one of the first 10 customers, and so I've had it a long time. So Glyphic is ingrained in me, but I will come on the Airspeed movement with you. But nice to meet everyone. Really excited to have a good conversation.
Excellent. Well, Adam, I'll let you kick it off with Grant. Just so everyone's aware, we will be opening it up to some questions at the end, but we want this to be an open dialogue. So please put stuff in the chat as these guys are going through their presentation. And just, feel free to jump in and raise your hand if you want to. Okay, let's get started, Adam.
Great. So Grant, you mentioned you've been a customer for a little bit over 2 years. If you can, I'd like you to kind of think back to pre-Glyphic, pre-Airspeed, and maybe start off by giving us a little bit of an idea of your philosophy before using Airspeed, what your approach into coaching and enablement was, what that looked like, and then perhaps how your philosophy around what good coaching is and can be has evolved since working with us.
There to unpack, Adam. I think I'll start with pre-Airspeed. I think it's quite an interesting time, right? Because we were looking at AI before AI became sexy. I think everyone's now gone mad for AI in every aspect of their role. But obviously we were already looking at it, quite some time ago. And for me before, we were really intentional about coaching. So there were kind of 3 ways, but they were all very manual. It looked like we would rotate one-to-ones every week with the sales team. So, the alternate week would be deal-based one-to-ones. So we'd be kind of going into the deals, looking at any blockers, focusing on that. On the fortnightly basis, the opposite, you would do coaching. So it'd be, walk me through what blocked you there, walk me through the scenario. Let's do a practice. I'll be the customer. Sounds really weird doing it like that now, but that was pre the tool. I'll be honest with you, we didn't come into using Airspeed for coaching. That was never the first intention. The first intention was more around call recording, and I tried lots of call recording tools at that time. Over about a 3 to 6 month period before we signed up with Airspeed, we went through a number of different call recording tools, and it was the best at transcribing, and it was the best at meeting the various qualification frameworks that we needed to do. So that originally it started as just for the first year, we were just recording, capturing data, making sure we had done all of the qualification on discovery calls and demos to understand the deals. It was only kind of as the coaching scorecards started to come through that we realized that actually, this is much better as a self-serve, self-accountable solution. And that was a significant change for me. That really took a lot of time off my time in one-to-ones. Instead of doing the dance with our team of kind of, what do you think you did bad at this week? Which no one really likes to have that conversation, right? No one really wants to have that conversation. We can get them to self-evaluate, self-look at what went wrong, start to try and tweak it, and then when it comes to review, we can discuss it. So I think my philosophy has always been feedback's a gift, and we try and ingrain that into our culture. But fundamentally, before we had this, it was a lot of time trying to understand the customer call unless I sat in the call.
And then I guess if we were to fast forward, reflecting on the past 2 years with Glyphic and now Airspeed, of course, could you give the audience a quick overview of how you leverage that enablement and coaching tool, reflecting a bit on kind of what's changed in that process and how Airspeed has helped facilitate that change.
Yeah, so I suppose, for a bit of context, given the size and the growth that we're going after, I have 5 people in the team globally, right? So if you think that we need to achieve about 40-50 million of net new revenue every year to kind of hit the run rate, 5 people is not a lot to do that number. And so we have to find every way we can to, capture, use information, use data to be absolutely meticulous so that most time is spent with customers. And if there's something to improve, we need to know quickly and we need to pivot as quick as possible. And I think before, as I mentioned, we were focused on this kind of one-on-one through the one-on-ones, and coaching wasn't kind of in front of us. And now with the scorecards, it's full view. And I think what's really important with the system and how it's changed is all of our team look at it and look at their dashboard every Monday. The first thing I ask them to do is not to go into HubSpot and look at their deal dashboard on a Monday. It's go and look at your scorecard. How did you do? Because if your rapport building is not scoring well across those calls, we've just wasted a number of calls or a number of discoveries, a number of demos. If we didn't have next steps on those calls, then you better get a follow-up email with next steps, because we're not getting that deal. They're going to move forward with someone else who gave them next steps. So I think it's been really interesting. Now we've got the tools for our teams to really focus on themselves and self-accountability, reviewing those dashboards as if it was their metrics dashboard on a Monday. And it's just so much more of a richer conversation for me as a leader to have with them, to say, hey, what did you notice from your scorecards this week? And sometimes there's anomalies, right? Like I don't want everyone to think like we just look at the scorecard and it's fact, right? We know it's automation, we know it's AI. There might be context to some of those things. We'll look at the stakeholder groups. Which stakeholder groups scored most lowly on rapport building? Is that a trend, or is that something we should take note of or ignore? But what the biggest difference and the biggest shift for me is that the team come to me, right? Like they come to me with, right, I've noticed my rapport building slipping, or I just keep forgetting the next steps, and let's get a tactic or a habit in place to really make sure we don't miss that. I suppose, hopefully that answers your question, Adam.
Oh, absolutely. No, thank you for that. And I think maybe just to drill down on a theme there, you mentioned this culture of self accountability, right? I think often, and we've had conversations actually with quite a few of the participants on the line today around introducing a concept like coaching scorecards and really empowering the end users, the individual contributors, the reps, the direct reports to view those coaching scorecards as a means of self-enablement and self-coaching. I'm wondering if you could maybe talk a bit about, to the extent that you had to have these conversations, what that change management component looked like, how you brought your team on board with really leveraging the coaching scorecards in the way that you've mentioned here.
Yeah, I think I have to be fair to the audience, right? Like throughout my career, I have been obsessed with data, obsessed with numbers, obsessed with metrics, but I am not a manager who manages by metrics day to day. Like I don't, beat people with a stick with metrics. And I think that because of that, people sometimes, if you're in that environment, just because you have to be, if you're in a business where your average deal value is 3K, 4K, 5K, you've got to be on top of your numbers. With ours, it's a bit more complex. Sometimes the deal's 3 million, 5 million. It's a bit more complex. So managing by numbers alone is not the culture that I like to set. And I think that's somewhat made it easier to bring in another dashboard with more metrics. I'd air caution on bringing in a scorecard into an environment where you're heavy on the metrics. Everyone looks at your metrics, calls out your metrics, and then applying that same to the coaching scorecard. I don't think they're right. I don't think you can apply the same mentality or approach to metrics management on a scorecard. And I think because we didn't have that, people were more open. I think secondly, I won't hire anyone on our team who doesn't have clear adaptability and the ability to pivot and the ability to kind of move with the moment, right? And so mostly what's mostly correlated with that is people are able to spot the challenges that are going to create roadblocks. And I think if you hire the right people who have the culture of, I see something going wrong here, I need to fix it, it makes life easier. So I don't want to say like, oh yeah, follow how I did it and it's right. I think there's a number of things that I've done in the way I've set my organization up and my team up to allow those coaching scorecards to be easily slotted in. But that self accountability, it turns from I'm scoring badly on rapport on I think I need to go deeper on X, or I think I need. What are some tactics? And then when we get onto our Monday meeting with the sales team, you'll hear conversations between my team of, "Hey, I really messed up on this particular part of the call. Anyone got any tactics on how they'd overcome that? How did you approach that? How would you approach that?" And so largely, I don't even have to coach. Really, what I do is in the one-to-ones just check that they are driving that accountability.
And Grant, I know you've mentioned in our previous conversations this idea of kind of pattern recognition as well, and that's not just with coaching scorecards, right? I think that's a fundamental way with which you're leveraging Airspeed across insights, for example, on top of the agentic workflows with Ask Airspeed and agents. But could you talk a little bit more, or more precisely share perhaps a specific example of where an insight that you might have identified vis-a-vis the coaching scorecard led to some meaningful change in how an end user changed his or her approach, or how the team really thought collectively around approaching certain conversations?
Yeah, I suppose that there's kind of two things, right? One is around, I use the next steps quite a lot in some of the examples I've given, because that has been a continual thing that people are so focused on doing well and building rapport and getting all the information that they fail just at the very last hurdle. We had a particular one where, the customer wanted to move really fast. They kept saying in the meeting, I want to move fast, I need to move fast. And we do the challenger sales process, so we're a teach, tailor, take control. Like, we're very much focused on that. And so following that with that individual, we lost the deal. Because they didn't do next steps. They forgot. 2 days later, they followed up and they said, look, your competitors already sent us the details, sent us the contract, we're ready to go, right? And so that was a killer, right? Like, that's a killer, because that was an easy fix. It was something they knew that they needed to develop. And so in that particular example, we as a team set up and did a next steps under the kind of take control methodology and framework. We revisited the challenger sales process, the take control. What does that mean? How does that work in practice? And what we did is we switched. So I was the seller. They were the customer. We actually did the live demo after with everyone on the call, and then we switched. They become the seller, and then we kept rotating it. We did it 6 times, right? And so that one was so important that it took a team effort for us to do the demos. But what we've then learned is that's not scalable, right? Like, you can't do that. It's not scalable if you've got too many meetings. We've got a small lean team. We just don't have the time. So now what we've done is we've built in the AI simulations. I don't know how many people on the call have access to the AI simulations. But for example, I don't know if I can share my screen, Adam. Can I? Yeah, I can. Here we go. So if I give an example here, just checking everyone can see my simulations. Can everyone see that?
It's still loading, but it's coming up.
There? Right. Okay. And now? Yeah. So what we now do is we just build the AI training simulations around the elements that we've noticed that are coming up as a pattern that we need to work on as a team. And so we'll also use the Ask Glyphic to sort of suggest training simulations as well. So, look at the last 100 calls. What was the main thing that we could have done differently? And then we build that into the training simulation and the AI training simulation. So then we can scale this really effectively. I don't need to do the demos. I'll review the urgency qualifier. So how do we create urgency? What is the customer? And we build that simulation in. So hopefully that's kind of gives you a good indication. But we kind of went from manual, we spotted something, we went to manual, and now we've kind of rolled it out to scalable across the AI simulations.
Great. And I know, we talked a little bit about kind of ROI, which is always a difficult kind of metric to quantify here, but I think that's certainly one to zero in on, right? The time savings, just the pure time savings that's delivered by not needing to invest in that kind of round robin concept, albeit really effective, but quite intensive in terms of you and your team's time. Kind of exporting some of that to the training simulator module, which helps reps get reps in those contexts, and it's built, of course, off of specific context that's pulled from actual sales discussions that are taking place, and the ability to kind of have your teams leverage that. And I think also from an onboarding perspective, small team, when a new joiner comes on board, they can certainly leverage that module to really get up to speed and practice quite thoroughly in their first few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, look, and we talked about this a lot. We talk about the ROI, and I think it's a hard one for me because there's a couple of things with this, right? It's become so ingrained in the way we operate. We have just got those time efficiencies, and instead of having to add headcount, we're just getting more efficiencies, which means we can do more with customers. We spot the blockers or the challenges that when deals are starting to fall off, or we have indicators where we know the initial call didn't go as well as the calls that we and so what's interesting is that our peers, my competitors in the market, they probably have 10, 15, 20 salespeople for the same region and area and focus, but we've remained static at that 5 over the last few years because we've just constantly been able to do more with more customers through the automations and time savings. I think the other thing that I reflected on after we had this conversation is, and this is quite a bold statement, and I don't think it will stay around forever. I think once we start to get to the next tier, we'll probably need it. But I don't have a sales enablement function. And now for any business between 100 million and 500 million, that is pretty unheard of, right? Most businesses, when they start to get to that sales size and that motion, they start to build out their sales enablement. All my data, all my information between Airspeed and HubSpot, anything like reanalyzing ICP, reanalyzing that pattern recognition and spotting those patterns every quarter, every month to, make slight tweaks to the enablement, build the training programs, build the coaching. That is all captured automatically for me. And if you think about AI, the one thing about LLMs is pattern recognition. You've got to think about what they're good at, right? People are good at doing the sales. Let's take all of the admin, all of the planning, all of the other stuff off of them and serve it to them on a plate and data to help them make their own decisions. But ultimately, let's make sure that they can spend as much time with customers as possible. And so, I think the ROI for me is I haven't had to add 5, right? Most of my competitors last year declined 25% year on year, 30% year on year. We grew, right? We grew year on year with a 5-person team, right? I think it's hard to quantify ROI, but it's been a big piece for me.
Oh, in the numbers, which is great.
The most important.
Yeah, the numbers that you're accountable for in your job. So that's amazing. I didn't realize how much revenue you were managing as a sales team that size without an enablement function. I don't think I've ever heard that before. So that's fantastic. All right.
And I think just a quick plug on the training simulator. So this is not a module we talk about much, right? It's within the kind of the broader coaching functionality. So I will just put a quick plug if anyone's interested in doing a bit of a session around it, understanding a bit more, please reach out to us and we're happy to have that conversation.
And by the way, if anyone does start using it, it's the most fun just making you can toggle between like easy, medium or difficult customer. The difficult customer one is just the most fun. Just watching the AI simulation create difficult customers is a great training ground. I still enjoy doing this.
Actually, I might try to do that. I don't think I've done that yet. Well, good. Well, yeah, Grant, thank you for that perspective across kind of all those various topics and questions here. I think at this point, we're happy to kind of shift to a little bit more of a kind of an open session. So I think first and foremost, If there are any questions from individuals on the call, if you want to share your feedback on how you're approaching coaching and enablement, with the support of Airspeed, please feel free to share here. And then, yeah, we can kind of go back and forth from there. Oh, okay. So we have a question down here. So the question is, do you have any tips for handling top reps refusing or being hesitant to be scored, or those who seem to be top reps by closed-won deals but have a lot of potential and thus refusing? So I think this is a really interesting question, and I think it gets back to one of the questions I put to Grant, right around that kind of change management focus when a team is adopting a new tool like coaching scorecards here. And ultimately, every customer approaches it somewhat differently, right? It's not something, in my opinion, that can be positioned very much as kind of a top-down adoption strategy. I think it has to be communicated in a way that very much fits into that pattern that Grant was mentioning around kind of self-enablement, not a tool to measure exactly in a quantitative way performance, but a way to spot patterns and potential gaps. And as a manager, use that to facilitate a broader conversation. But I think more importantly, as an end user, to maybe take stock and look at what you might want to improve on or seek resources to improve on for future touch points. But Grant, I'd be interested on your kind of.
Yeah, I think there's three things, right? You can take the top-down approach. You absolutely can. If the business needs to move forward on innovation, we need to be an AI first, and we need to drive self-accountability. You can absolutely do that, and you can turn it on. And as they start to falter, you can manage that. It's a risk. It's a revenue risk, but don't be scared to do that. Like, it's your top performer now. It might not be your top performer in a few years, right? When things change and when AI changes a lot of the ways we operate. Obviously, I'm not advocating for that one, but that is possible. And I do think people sometimes think that's off the table, and it's not. The second one, I think, is about making sure that they see the value of the recording. So start first with the value of recording information, data, and when you're in your coaching or your one-on-ones, it's asking questions. Hey, just pull up Glyphic for me. What did they say about X? Just starting to just culturally make sure that Airspeed is in that conversation, and start using the tools that are available to show them the value, and then start adding on coaching. And it's a slowly approach. The third thing you can do, and I've done this with one who was a bit hesitant with it, is say, look, we have half hour every week, right? You have to catch up with me. You're doing great. I know you don't want to have to do the half hour. We don't find time. So here's the deal. We're going to reduce that fortnightly one to 10 minutes. In those 10 minutes, I want you to review the scorecard and tell me one of the things that you're going to try and, develop or work on. And if, you can come to me and you've got a plan, then that's a 10-minute meeting done. We don't need to do the full 30 minutes. It's like, what do they want? Like, most of the time, top reps just don't want to do one-on-ones. They don't want to be spending time going over stuff. So, like, how do you engineer it in a way that says, okay, we don't need to do this if you're self-reflecting? I'm confident you know what you need to do. I don't need to have that meeting. You don't want that meeting. So let's go. Let's move it to fortnightly once you've got into that rhythm. And I think just finding ways like that. But again, to Adam's point, there's so many different ways. But like they're three of the main ways I would if I had that on my team.
Makes sense.
I'm curious from Airspeed side, actually. I know that we have a couple individuals on the team joining the conversation. I'm wondering if anyone wants to share their perspective on how they use coaching scorecards. I know it's of course something that we use internally. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Hey everyone, my name is George. Happy to just give you a brief perspective on how I use coaching scorecards. I've got them set up with an agent. So every Friday afternoon, it will review my calls for the week. The agent will present me what I've done well on discovery calls, what I've done well on demo calls, and where perhaps there are gaps. And then it can also provide me with links to calls where my colleagues have done those specific skills well on a call. So I can just like review that Friday afternoon, perhaps not too much going on, go into the weekend, with some fresh ideas about how I can perhaps improve specific skills on different types of calls.
That's awesome, George. And I think that agent layer is definitely worth mentioning here, right? You similar to all these call transcripts, right, that you have this aggregate of data within your Airspeed workspace, and the ability to drive analysis on top of that, apart from just reviewing the scorecard metrics, is a really, really interesting use case. And curating a report or an output that lands in your inbox personally, that allows you to analyze those trends perhaps, or I think to your point, George, which is a really good example, highlighting examples of other calls that colleagues had made where they did a particularly good job perhaps at the intro or their discovery or the ability to confirm that next step. I think that's a great way to also source resources to review and improve on gaps that you might have identified.
The one thing
absolutely. And I think, sorry, go on, Grant.
No, sorry, I was just going to add, the one thing you brought to mind is actually on that comparison piece. And I would just really air caution on that if you're doing early adoption and change management. I think it's great, George, that you are choosing to look at other options. Be careful as a leader not to say, hey, look at this call, how great did they do? Like, it's easy to fall into that trap as a leader. And if you're looking at change management, I would urge no one to do that. Like, don't start sending people calls and saying, look how good these are, right? That is not the way. And I have seen that done in some instances before. But it's good for you as an individual to self-select and go, hey, let me go and find a way that someone did that. I think that's really admirable.
So Grant, you're saying more from a leadership, stick with the coaching of the rep individually versus trying to just force other types of methodologies on them to make it more human.
Yeah, it's just like the old days where people would say, well, Judy's done 100 calls. Why haven't you done 100 calls? What if Judy
Right.
can do 100 calls? You can do 100 calls. It just pulls you back to that. And I think there's no place for comparison because everyone's customer's different. Everyone's approach is different. Some people are better at engaging through discovery. Some are better at rapport build. Like there are overarching trends, but I think comparison only in the change management piece when you're early adopting it. I think once you get deep into it and everyone gets comfortable, George's example is great. Like that's what people do. They start saying, hey, who's done that? It's fine to then start having it. I'd just air caution in those early stages if you're trying to bring a whole team on board, and it just creates alienation. Right.
That makes sense. We're getting a question in the chat about using the calls though for onboarding.
Oh,
which
absolutely.
I think,
Yeah. And actually, I fell into a trap where I just sent all my calls because obviously as the leader, I'm the highest scoring on the scorecard. I make it a point to try and compete with the team on the small number of calls that I still do with clients. But I think it is absolutely onboarding, but make sure it's not all the same people. I think try and orchestrate that you've got multiple team members showing different skills. That would all I would be suggesting on, and that's what we do on our onboarding. Pick 3 different calls as an example of X, 3 different calls as an example of Y, and build that into their 1 week onboarding sheet. The first week they just watch examples. It's great for product learning as well.
And Tanya, I saw your question down here. So the question is, does Airspeed plan to automatically create or suggest scorecards per user teams based on what good looks like within calls? So the answer to that is yes and no. And some of that functionality exists today where we have templated coaching scorecards live within a workspace. The other way to approach it is you can generate a coaching scorecard via the AI as well. So you can give it a definition as to what you're looking to create kind of broader, and then it will actually populate for you skills. And those skills are based off of kind of the context that it has access to. So that might be a route, an avenue to try. Another aspect here is actually leveraging the agent to help you ideate and brainstorm around what a coaching scorecard might look like, and all of those kind of composite skill sets, that go into a scorecard. So using the agent to kind of give you some ideas around this is what good looks like based off of all of that context that it has access to across your discovery calls, your demo calls, your onboarding discussions. That can be an effective way to make those scorecards a bit more curated, but also do them a bit more in scale as well.
I would just say don't over-engineer your scorecards, right? Like that, I've seen some people who've got like 10 different scoring methods. No one will pay attention to that. Like, what are the 3 or 4 key things in an account discovery that are going to move the dial? What are the 3 or 4 things in a cold call that have to be hit for it to be an effective cold call? Like, don't over-engineer it, because it just becomes dashboards all over again in HubSpot. But what I would say on the scorecards and the good looks like, I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but now we've got the homepage where we come into our scorecards and we get the trending notes, so you can see by teams or by the demo or cold call now what's starting to trend down or up versus week before, and I think that is keeping it focused on the call type or the action and the trend is probably slightly better than trying to do team based, in my opinion, but you know, just on my side.
Thank you.
Any other questions or perspectives on how your teams are leveraging the tooling for this?
All right. Thanks. Can everyone see my screen again? Sounds like we can wrap up a little early today. So thank you for everyone for your attendance for this first session. Grant, a lot of great information. Thank you for sharing all that. Just a couple reminders from the Airspeed side. So we're doing a very robust customer referral program with some really nice rewards if you help us bring in a new customer. There's a QR code here that you can scan that gives you all of those details. We've also emailed this a couple times and put it in the product. So there's some different places that you can hear about this. But I think one of our best ways to get new customers, all of us being in sales, is through testimonials. A lot of you know CROs and RevOps leaders and people looking for maybe adding conversational intelligence and revenue execution to their tool set, or looking to replace another solution. We really appreciate you helping us out and helping us build our customer bench. So click here. Also, our next session, we are focused on custom insights. We know this is a hot topic. Coaching scorecards is probably the thing that Adam and I get asked about the most, and this is probably second on the list. The idea is to do this and then get deeper into the agents as we move into the fall. We don't have a date and a speaker announced for this. It's the summertime, you know, July, August, everybody's got different holidays and stuff. So we're trying to work around that, but we do aim to get another session soon around this topic. So stay tuned for that. You will all be invited. And then of course, if you can attend, you will get the recording. And then if you have specific ideas, or if you would like to be a part of one of these, like I said at the top, you can email our general CS channel at cs@goairspeed.com, or you can just tell Adam or I on an upcoming call, or reach out to us directly if you know us. We want to hear from you. We want to make these valuable and really focus on what makes this, what works for you guys. So with that being said, I hope everyone has a good rest of their Tuesday. Closing deals, closing the quarter. We know we did this on the last day of the quarter. We're trying to squeeze it in. That wasn't intentional, but we won't do that again. So good luck to everybody and have a good one. Very much appreciate your time today.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thanks,
Thank you, Grant. Thanks, everyone.